Good morning. Let's get started. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Cheryl Sharp. I am the founder of Pink Peak Financials. And I'll be taking the webinar today. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody for coming along and joining us, especially during school holidays. If any of you've got little ones at home, mine's literally surfaced 2 minutes before I'm due to go live, so I've just briefed him to keep quiet. So I'm going to start today with the thought of the day from Zig Ziglar. Stop selling, start helping. Now, this is the very first sales lesson. If people feel they're being sold to, they won't buy. I know I don't. And if they feel you're helping them, either by adding value or by solving a problem they have, then provided they perceive the value of your offering to be greater than the price, then they'll buy from you. Jeremy Gitoma, I can't remember how you pronounce that, sorry if I've said it wrong, described as the king of sales, said, people don't like to be sold, but they love to buy. So I recommend you check out some of his insightful books around value-based selling. They're really good. This webinar is all about learning how to help people to buy without them feeling they're being sold to. Before we get stuck in, sorry, my voice feels a bit scratchy this morning. Before we get stuck in, I just want to throw in our usual disclaimer that the information in this webinar is educational. And it's going to be general in nature, so it's no substitute for tailored advice, specifically tailored to your circumstances. So here's a list on the screen of what we're going to cover today. We'll discuss the definition of selling and the most successful type of seller, along with some top tips. We'll also demystify the essential ingredients to create value, to look at some of the effective sales techniques and learn how to overcome objections. And then we'll discuss your next steps and answer any questions you may have. I'd recommend, if you haven't got it already, grab a pen and paper. You will get a copy of this recording and an action plan, but just so you can write down any thoughts you have as you go along. And we will have time for questions at the end, but feel free to pop them in the chat box or the Q&A as we go along, and I can check them at the end. So let's get started. What is selling? The Oxford Dictionary defines a sale as the exchange of a commodity for money. But we could also adapt this as the exchange of goods or services in return for money. So have a think about this. Will the value of the goods or services will the value of the goods or services need to be worth more or less than the money your client or customer will part with? Of course, the value has to be higher. So who determines that value? Is it you or is it your customer? Again, it's your customer. So let's never forget that value is perceived by the customer, and therefore it's our job to articulate that value to them. And obviously I'll cover this as we go through and when I get into the sales techniques. But first of all, at what point is a sale actually made? So lots of training courses focus on getting verbal acceptances or proposals signed. But how often have you celebrated a sale when a customer has said they'll buy, but then they've never followed through? So in my view, the sale isn't made until the cash is banked. That cash is actually sitting in your bank account. And as part of our sales coaching program, we'll review your sales process and ensure that the process extends right back to the point where the cash is banked. As your coach and accountant, we want you to see your cash flow grow, not just your sales. After all, if you don't collect on your debts, then you can go broke, regardless of how big your sales results are. So let's focus now on the type of salesperson you need to be. There are different types of salespeople, and they can be broken down into 4 kinds of sellers. I'll give a definition of each, and I'll encourage you to note any activities or actions that relate to your business. So first up, we've got the order taker. Now, the order taker will sit back and wait for the sale to come to them. For example, a retail shopkeeper that sits behind the counter and waits for you to come in to them with your purchase. So what activities are you doing in your business that are order taking, i.e. where you're being reactive and waiting for the sales to come to you? So maybe make a note of those so that you know where they sit in the 4 types. And in what ways can you be more proactive instead of waiting for that sale to come to you? The second type is the product pusher, and they will try to sell as many different types of products regardless of whether they'll benefit the customer or not. They don't listen to what the customer actually wants, and they just want to make their sales target, basically. So, and I know this is the one that none of us want to be at all. So do you know what your customers really want? What actions can you take to find out what your customers want? So have a think around this and write down any notes and ideas. Examples might be customer surveys, feedback from recent events, or simply just asking how you could be of further help once you've delivered a service or a product. Then you've got the overseller, and they are willing to sell or say anything in order to get the sale, even if it's not true. The only thing that matters is the sale. It doesn't matter if the sale is not in the best interest of the customer. Your sales process should work in a way that you under-promise and over-deliver. UPOD, you may see this acronym throughout the session, but UPOD stands for under-promise and over-deliver. So think about the stereotype for a used car person. What immediately comes to mind when you think of this one? Now remember those words you note, and remember that's not who you want to be. Our aim is to help our customers and improve the lives of the products or services. So improve their lives with our products or services, not just to sell to them. So any of those things that you write down, you know you want to be the opposite of. So if people feel as if they're being sold to, then they'll start to think about you like this, which is obviously not what we want. The biggest risk is that you'll lose customers' trust and they'll walk away never to return. So you really don't want to be seen as the overseller in your customers' eyes. And then we've got the problem solver. And these identify problems the customer is experiencing and then offers a solution in the form of products or services. So consider the wants versus the needs of the customer, the benefits versus the features of the product or service. And also think about the what's in it for me, for the customer. So you must be able to handle all objections, for example, no time, no money, too busy, I won't use it, etc., etc. And as part of our sales coaching, we will delve much deeper into these options or these topics. So wants versus needs is important, as what the customer wants and what they need are often quite different. And it's important to be able to distinguish between these and articulate to the customer what they really need. For example, a person may want a Ferrari, but they have 3 children that they need to transport regularly. So what they need is not what they want. Likewise, a customer might want their roof painted, but what they really need is a new roof. Benefits versus features is also another important distinction. So we need to highlight the benefits of a product or a service to the customer, defining the value that they'll get from the purchase, instead of just trying to justify what is involved. So remember, the perceived value must be more than the price. So if we go back to the roof example, a paint job could just be a band-aid. It will be much cheaper than a new roof, however. So we need to sell the value of a new roof. So for example, we'll be able to say that the new roof will ensure that the customer's roof stops leaking. It will reduce stress, it will reduce damage to contents and time spent cleaning up water. The problem will then be solved long term while reducing energy costs and potentially increasing the value of their house. So that's all the benefits. I'm sure there's probably more, but we'll just keep to those for now. But the features of the new roof, such as what it's made of, the look of the finishings, etc., are not always overly relevant to the customer. Obviously, they want it to look good, but at the end of the day, no matter how good it looks, if it doesn't solve the problem, you're never gonna sell it. So here are the top 10 must-dos when selling. Be clear on your target market. You don't want to waste time selling to customers who are not a good fit. Articulate your value in one sentence, and the value is what matters most to customers. Commit to what you promise. Never underestimate the value of follow-through to speed up the sale and build credibility. Use a sales system and stick to it. And this system should be clearly broken down into steps for you and your team to follow and increase efficiency and reduce rework and things. And actually, I'm going to just caveat on this one that this one we have seen, it probably is the most important out of all of these, because when we don't follow our system, it goes wrong. Every time, without fail, every time we don't follow a system, it goes wrong. So I was actually thinking about this morning and writing a whole blog post on it. But yeah, sales system, write one, stick to it. You can adapt it and change it as you learn and grow, but having that system will help you to be clear and make sure that everything goes right and you don't forget anything. Then we've got remember to ask, not tell. So not every customer's situation is the same. Don't assume you know what the client needs. Ask lots of questions to truly understand and then build that connection. Focus on the benefits, not the features. So just remember what's in it for me from the customer's point of view, and articulate what's in it for them, not for you, for them. Establish the value before quoting the price. So the value to the customer, as we've said before, must exceed the price for them to buy. Offer options, and this is known as the choice of yeses. So the question changes from should I buy to which option should I choose. Focus on the relationship and not the sale. It may take a few interactions before a customer is ready to buy, especially if you're a service-based business, because you need to build up that trust and the relationship. And then finally, UPOD, under promise and over deliver so that you always exceed a customer's expectations. So I've talked about the importance of articulating value, but what are the components of value? If a customer decides to buy from you, it's because they don't, if a customer declines to buy from you, it's because they don't see the value. You haven't articulated it well enough. And there's always money for what people want to buy. It's about value, not the money. Just think iPhone. People are always wanting the new iPhone, queuing up ridiculous queues to get them, and they cost a fortune. So just have that in the back of your mind all the time. Now, here are 3 ingredients to determine that value. So first of all, you've got service. Now, most people expect a good service, but do we always get it? So some questions you may want to ask yourself are, what do you do that's exceptional? What could you do? How can you demonstrate this to your prospective customers? Is your service level consistent across your business? Do some team members need training or perhaps to be shown the door of opportunity if they're not performing? So remember that bad news travels fast. So if you're not providing a good service to your prospective customers, others will hear about it. Then we've got quality, and I've just realised that the wording is the wrong way around, sorry. Is this a given too? Yes, but how often do we really get great quality? How can you give previous customers to articulate the quality they've experienced from your products or services? Can you offer a money back guarantee, for example? And then you've got price. So by now you should have asked enough questions to know what problems your customer requires a solution for and the value of that solution. So where are you positioned price-wise in relation to your competition? If the value you provide is greater than the price, then a sale will happen. If you're at the high end, then use this to your advantage. Promote your quality. And if you wanted a heart surgeon, you wouldn't go to the cheapest one, would you? You'd go to the best. So this is exactly what you're doing as well. Building the value in your product or service will build trust in your brand. So a trusted and approved brand is far more likely to get more referrals as well. So now we're going to start looking at 4 techniques you can start using to increase your sales. We're going to do the formula for change, which is the one that I shared in a sneak peek on our socials. You've got wants versus needs in the spin cycle, ask, don't tell, and then bam, fam. So formula of change. So this is the formula for change. It's D times V plus F needs to be greater than R. Now, you're probably looking at me thinking, we're not here for a maths lesson, but don't worry, I'm going to explain it. So R, this represents the client's resistance to change. And if we build up the variables on the left-hand side, I just realised my left is probably your right, so left-hand side, then we can overcome that resistance and make this sale. And remember that people don't like change, and for some people that change, there could be a huge amount of resistance. For others, there may be a small amount of resistance, but there's always resistance to change. Then we've got D, and D represents the dissatisfaction with the status quo. So we'll start by building up that level of dissatisfaction. Then you've got V, which represents the vision of a positive future state. And this is the picture we'll paint for the client or the customer. And F is for first steps in the direction of the vision. So this is something that you need to understand instinctively, and you probably do it a lot without even realizing. But the formula makes it clear why change doesn't often happen, because without that dissatisfaction with the now and a vision of the future and the ability to take some simple first steps towards the vision, there'll be no change. And then we've got the spin cycle. So it's important to remember that clients or customers come to you because they want something. However, it might not be what they actually need. There's quite often an underlying problem as to why they want it. So you need to help your customers to join the dots in between what they want and what they need. And this will allow you to offer your clients or customers the choice of yeses that we spoke about. So they could purchase what they originally wanted, or they could purchase what they actually need to solve the underlying problem. So how do we join up the dots in between the wants and the needs? And we use a concept here called the spin cycle. So you begin by asking questions to understand the customer situation. So for example, why would you like to purchase this product or service? What will you be using it for? What else are you doing? And then you identify the problems that your client or customer might be experiencing, i.e. lack of time or lack of money, so forth. Then the impact of not solving their problems, what would happen? And then this will lead you to identify what they actually need to do to solve their problem, i.e. purchasing your product or your service. And then we've got ask, don't tell. And this reminds us to engage with their customers by asking them questions. And it's really important to begin by asking questions to find out what your customer needs until you reach that point of engagement where the customer starts asking you questions instead. So, for example, a discussion might go a bit like this. So, question. So, how are your sales tracking right now? Customer may answer, they've dropped a bit since COVID hit. Question, what have you tried so far to increase sales? Customer answers, I've increased my advertising. Question, are your sales team members achieving the same outcomes that you are? Answer, no, for some reason I seem to get better results than them. Question, what sales training have you provided to your team? I've shared a few ideas with them, but nothing formal. Were you aware that we offer a values-based sales coaching service? And then this is the point of engagement. And the customer will then turn around and say, no, what does that involve? Well, we work together to start by setting a sales action plan where we can get clear on what you want to achieve and the steps needed to get there. Next question, that's interesting. How much does it cost? Well, there's a number of options, and we're going to cover that at the end of the webinar. But the point here is that until you're showing some interest by asking questions, you're not engaged or interested. And then the fourth technique is really simple, and it's just to follow up. So there's some stats there on the slides. As you can see, 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect. 44% only follow up once. 80% of sales are made on the 5th or subsequent contact. And customers are 4 times more likely to buy it when referred by a friend. Now, these stats are all sourced from the Marketing Donut, and they're quite telling, really, aren't they? So most people will obtain at least 2 proposals to compare before making a purchase. But when only 44% of salespeople follow up on a proposal, if you follow up, by default, your chances of getting the job improve instantly. You'll appear proactive and be in a position to negotiate, depending obviously on the nature of the job or product. But without that follow-up, you'll never know why somebody didn't choose your product or service. So consider touch points you have with prospects that could count as contact, i.e. meeting at a networking event, being heard on the radio, seeing you in the paper or socially, seeing you on social media, being referred to positively by a client through word of mouth. Now, BAMFAM stands for book a meeting from a meeting. So it's far easier to sell to an existing customer than it is to sell to a new customer. But arranging the follow-up at the time of the first sale so that you have permission to contact that customer again. And it could be something that you do. You have the initial proposal meeting, potentially, depends on how you run your business. But maybe you could say, even if you can't get a proposal there and then, you'll say, right, well, I'll send you a proposal by X date, if you can't do it there and then, and I'll be in touch, or book a follow-up meeting at that point so that you are actually going to follow it up and the potential client knows that you will be following it up. And now we come on to overcoming objections. And this is often the hard part of making a sale. And it means that the prospect isn't convinced on the value of what you're offering. So the most common objections will be no time and no money. And this is, again, where you can use the formula for change. If your prospect has an objection, drill down back into that dissatisfaction and again, build the vision of what could happen after they've got your product or service, or potentially make the first steps easier. Maybe it was all a bit too overwhelming, so maybe reduce some of the services and just make those first steps a little easier to manage. You can also reverse testimonials or case studies, and they're great as they often show others in a similar position how they've benefited from buying your products or services. And then you've got the AQUA technique. And this provides a best practice process for responding to objections. So you acknowledge the way a person is feeling and their objection, question what they mean about the objection. So what is it about the solution you're offering that isn't going to give them what they want? Understand their objection and show them that you understand by like paraphrasing, repeating it back to them. And then answer. And only after you've done the first 3 steps can you revisit the proposal or offer an alternative. And this one, just a little tip, works really well on kids when they're asking for something and you say no, or you're asking them to do something and they say no. Works a charm. Okay, so moving on. So we've got your sales action plan, and this is a concise plan for your sales department, or you, if it's just yourself in the sales. And unfortunately, as being a business owner, we're all salespeople as well. So it could be that you are your sales department. We'll begin by setting you a budget for the year. We'll break down your overall sales budget into key components and set targets for each quarter. And then during each coaching session, we'll update your quarterly targets to reflect your actual results so that you stay on track to achieve your annual budget. We'll then set some key performance indicators for the year and also for each quarter. And then next, we'll identify the opportunities available to your business and what I can never say that word, vulnerabilities that you must manage. And then finally, we'll set some goals for the year and break them down into 90-day goals and actions to achieve those goals. And then we'll update your sales action plan at each coaching session thereafter. So my aim today is to help you take what you've learned and implement some positive changes in your business. So what are your next steps from here? Doing nothing is not an option. Doing the same you've always done is unlikely to give you the same results you've had in the past. So commit to doing something. Make a clear plan that you can articulate to your team if you have one, or just for yourself so you've got clarity. Focus on what you can do as opposed to worrying about what is out of your control. And remember, we're here to help you and we want to help you. So here is how we can help. As I've said, the information in this webinar is general in nature and it's no substitute for specific tailored advice and support. So here are some ways that we can help you more specifically beyond today's webinar. First of all, we can work with you to create your sales action plan. And this plan pulls together the ideas that we've shared today and sets out some clear targets, goals and actions for you to implement. Beyond the sales action plan, we offer value-based coaching for selling, so either to you or your team members or both. And this way we can ensure that the actions in the plan become a reality and that the skills and techniques are committed to your memory. If you're not quite ready to commit to a paid service, then we will be sending out to everybody who's registered a complimentary Formula for Change worksheet for you to complete. And this worksheet will help you to define the questions so that you can build dissatisfaction with the status quo for your customers, and then build a vision of what their life would look like if they buy from you. This worksheet also helps you to define the choice of yeses and sales options you can provide for your customer. And you can also use this worksheet for many different products and services that you have. And of course, I say of course, you may not know this already, but if you're not one of our clients yet, or you'd like to discuss some options to improve your sales outcomes in more detail, then we do offer free meetings to see how we can work together. And spoiler alert, there'll be lots of questions, so we can really dig deep. So, do we have any questions? Cool, so we had one earlier, now I can't get to it. So I've got a couple here. First question is, we have a couple of other salespeople in the business, as well as me, the owner. How can I help them improve their sales results? So as I said, we will send out a copy of the recording of this webinar so they can listen to it. And often the owner achieves better results because they've built trusted relationships with customers over the years. And it may be that your team needs some dedicated sales coaching to help them to build those relationships too. So we can also help with coaching your team on what we've shared here today. And then I've got one more. Can't get, so, and this is one that I get a lot actually, and it's one that I've asked, mentioned as well to my coach. So it says here, the sales techniques you shared are great, but what I'm concerned is I won't remember them. What's the best way to learn them? So practice, practice, practice. There's no shortcuts here. So when we do our sales coaching, we create a detailed outline and benefits document for each product and service, and then role play to practice utilizing the sales techniques. So that's a really great way that you can do it, is just role play. I know when I've been on training before, I role played some of these myself. And yeah, it's a really great way that you can create your own authentic wording and your own style of delivering it as well. So it doesn't feel like you're just following some steps. But yeah, just practice, 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 practice. Oh, have we got any more? No. Cool. So before we go, I thought I'd share this quote with you. Approach each customer with the idea of helping him or her solve a problem or achieve a goal, not of selling a product or a service. So make a simple plan today. Commit to at least 3 actions that you'll take as a result of today's webinar. Write them down, give each one of them an owner, even if that owner is you, and a completion date. And remember, if you need any support or help, then we are here for you. So just like to finish off by saying thank you for making the time to attend today's webinar. I really do appreciate that your time is valuable. So especially during the school holidays, if you've got little ones at home. There is a brief exit survey as you close down, and I'd really appreciate it if you could please answer a couple of questions, just so we can continuously improve these masterclasses and also get your feedback on some other topics potentially you'd like to see from us. So I hope we've given you plenty of ideas to ponder on and some clear next steps for you and your business. And I hope you have a great day. See you soon.